The most prolific offense in the history of college football. Where does it go without Brady and Burrow? MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, breaking down the LSU Tigers. We got Lon Phillips Sullivan on the line from LSU Odyssey. We, of course, invite you to lock it in right here. Got to subscribe to hit the bell for the notifications and know when we're going live, which is just about each and every day. We're breaking down the LSU offense. Lon, how you doing?
We're doing good, Mark. How about you?
I'm good. 60 touchdown passes. Now, that's not going to happen again. But, man, you were throwing, 15 or 18 touchdown passes as a program for the several seasons before that with the likes of Burrow, Danny Etling, and so forth. Some good quarterback play, but obviously very conservative approach, and just blew the top off in 2019 with those 60 touchdown passes. So I got to think with Miles Brennan, most likely the starter, that my first point is going to be that he probably benefited in a certain way for not having spring football and all these studs like Peter Parrish and TJ Finley and Max Johnson not having that opportunity to compete for the job. So how much of a job do you think, or a quarterback battle do you think it is, or do you think Brennan's got this thing locked down?
For one thing, Peter Parrish, he's been suspended indefinitely by the program. He may or may not return. There are rumors that he may be, in fact, suing the school for Title IX violations. It's a very sticky situation with Peter Parrish. He was there on the sidelines for the national championship game. And yeah, he was a very good dual threat quarterback, but he's not there anymore, or it's very up in the air as we know of right now. Mickey Joseph did tell him to pursue matters elsewhere, and so I take that as he's now no longer a member of the LSU Tigers. But TJ Finley, Max Johnson, although they were there for bowl preparation, watching Joe Burrow, they're not going to compete for this job. This offense is way too multidimensional, way too complex. There's far too much movement. Backs going out wide, tight ends going out wide, tight ends going in the slot, guys who are normally just on the outside coming into the backfield to get handoffs or to get little dump-offs like Jamar Chase or Jordan Jefferson did frequently last year. People I think they've forgotten that from not really doing much film study, just seeing the highlights of the touchdown throws. But there were a lot of times where Jamar Chase or Jordan Jefferson would be coming across the backfield. And it was very interesting stuff from Steve Ensminger. That's coming from his playbook. That predates Joe Brady's offensive evolution to LSU. But with Joe Brady's offensive evolution to LSU, we've got some of these stick routes and some of these button hook stuff. And I think it's going to only help our receivers out. And there's only one quarterback on our roster who can make those throws. That's Miles Brennan. If you've watched his throws during spring training, it was a fiesta. It was filth. It was unbelievable, Mark. He was just putting it just right like a dime. He was just unbelievable in drills, and he's always had a great arm. The question is, can he make those plays with his feet? Can he escape a collapsing pocket, move to his right, and just make that sick throw to get that first down against Bama? Can he get that 9.5 yard scramble instead of 8 yards? Over the line like Joe Burrow always did. Can he take those hits like Joe Burrow could? People just look at Joe Burrow, they just see some white boy. This dude was thick. This dude was a linebacker. People were bouncing off Joe Burrow. Miles Brennan had to gain weight. He had to for this LSU offense. He had to survive the SEC West, let alone the SEC, let alone the CFP. So Miles Brennan getting to at least 220 now, that's fantastic. That is beautiful for him. But what a lot of people don't remember is this guy, when he came into garbage time, we have breakdowns in an article called It's Time, Miles Brennan's 2019 Analyzed, 2020 Realized. It's there on our website, lsuodyssey.com. Miles Brennan tweeted, "It's time." And I think because it is time. It's Miles's 2 years here. This is his 2-year shot. I to say 60 touchdowns, of course not. To say 50 touchdowns, I think if we make the CFP, if we go undefeated, that's pretty much where his stat line would be with those weapons. Right about 45 touchdown mark. To say Jamar Chase would only catch 12 touchdowns after he caught 20 last year, that's a huge drop off. Do you think Jamar Chase is really going to be that bad this year? Like, a triple team? He was being triple teamed last year. So if you triple team him, then we just throw it to Eric Gilbert. We throw it to Terrace Marshall, who's another 5-star. This guy caught 13 touchdowns as a freshman. Against 6 top 10 teams, he caught 8 touchdowns of his 13. And 6 of those were in the red zone. So he was a huge red zone. He was a criminal in the red zone. No one could touch this guy. He was just catch me if you can. No one could touch him. He's an aerial enforcer. And Jamar Chase across the middle, I think people forget his strength. Jamar Chase is a filth in the strength and yards after catch marks. And then when you go to Kayshon Boutte, this guy was an absolute freak in high school in Louisiana. Kayshon Boutte is a great weapon that we've got. He's not only fast, but Mickey Joseph said that he possesses the same type of natural catcher's hands as Jamar Chase, and Jordan Jefferson had to evolve to 2019 to get those types of hands. Mickey Joseph claims Kayshon Boutte already has those types of hands. So when you combine the hands with the skill, with the finishing ability of a dude who had 5 touchdowns in 1 game in Louisiana football, he's the whole package, and he's only a freshman. Then you got Trey Palmer, a sophomore receiver. This guy had a brilliant punt return for a touchdown against Northwestern State. He was the only guy other than Micah Baskerville to have a special teams touchdown for the national champion 2019 Tigers. He's very fast, very speedy, but what I really like about this guy is he's competitive on every down. He's an absolute dog. He will fight you into the ground. I love watching Trey Palmer, and he was playing a lot with Miles Brennan last year in garbage time. They didn't connect often, but they were always just millimeters away, and he was running really, really good routes. Also, receiver, there's Coy Moore, a freshman who's just – I love this guy. He's out of the same high school as Jamar Chase, Rummel High. He's an absolute aerial imposer. This dude, you throw it up, he's going to get it. I don't really expect him to get too many opportunities with Eric Gilbert. Also, he's been called Megatron by Coach Orgeron. They're going to use him out wide. They're going to use him in the slot like I predicted a long time ago on your show. Eric Gilbert's not just going to be some tight end with his hand in the ground. Like, are you kidding me? He's too much of a matchup hell for secondary, for linebackers. Like, why wouldn't you put him in the slot? He'd have to be going against a linebacker or safety on almost every play unless the defense is really hip to it, which they aren't because of our pre-snap movement. You take that type of pre-snap movement with those matchups out wide, it's going to be unreal for our offense, Mark. So
well, do you give me license to steal some of these terms you throw around? What did you just throw out there? Aerial? Who is an aerial assassin or aerial
imposer?
Imposer.
Yeah.
If I could steal some of these lines, man, they're golden. I don't know too many teams out there that have an aerial imposer. That is tremendous. And one thing that you highlighted, but you brushed upon it real quick before we move on to the running backs that I'd like to highlight is just, it's going to be the obvious for LSU fans, but for people out there, when you roll out these numbers, the 20 touchdowns from Chase and from Marshall scoring 13 touchdowns as a freshman, as you mentioned, and Burrow was touchdowns and on and on. And you would think a team that's producing that kind of offensive numbers through the air had no running game, but no, you got a 1,500 yard back that with all that 726 points scored, the most in the history of the game, that was done against Texas's defense, Alabama's defense, Auburn's defense, Florida's defense,
Georgia's defense, and four number one ranked defenses at the time we played them. They weren't ranked number one after we were done with them.
Clemson's defense.
Yeah.
Even the caliber, there are teams in other conferences that aren't even facing the caliber of Texas A&M or Mississippi State's defense.
Mississippi State played us well. They kept us to 33. I mean, people just don't get it. But at the same time, Miles Brennan, I mean, he's going to have to. LSU fans aren't going to expect him to be Joe Burrow. We've been used to the really wasteful quarterbacks. Okay, just the horrible quarterbacks who would rather just the punter control the game than his arm. Miles Brennan is not going to be that. He has the fight in him. He has the fire in him. He's going to battle for plays. I expect him to at least get to the 3,800, 4,000 yard range passing, 35 to 40 plus touchdowns. This guy has it in him. He has the weapons. It's going to happen. And I don't expect 60 touchdowns, but I never count a Tiger out, as I told you last time.
So, Lon, at running back, you have obvious talent there. And it's talent that wasn't tested as the workhorse guys, but they got enough playing time that they know what it feels like to be in a big game and get some carries. When we talk about Chris Curry with almost 200 yards, Tyrion Davis-Price with almost 300 yards and 6 touchdowns, John Emery with almost 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yeah. So these guys were productive in spots, but of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the guy with 55 catches and 1,400 yards on the ground. So on one hand, you could say, well, we've got just as much talent. We've got a stable of running backs that were 4 and 5 stars coming into this process, but we're losing the workhorse on the negative side. So do you have any concerns there?
Anytime you lose a weapon like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, one of my favorite all-time LSU players, it sucked losing him, but he's going to the perfect situation in Kansas City. I can't begrudge him after the season he had. It was, all right, fine. But people forget that with the 60 touchdowns that Joe Burrow threw, we also I think it was 29 touchdowns we rushed for, something like that, 30-something touchdowns. I mean, that's a joke. 30 rushing touchdowns from your running backs to go with.
Looks like it's 32.
Yeah, 30, exactly, 32 touchdowns. I was close. I remember looking that number up and being like, what? That's silly, Billy. No way. Yeah. But here's the thing. Those 3, John Emery Jr., he's the playmaker. He's the stud. He even with one eye, this guy has brilliant vision in between the tackles and on the outside. Under Kevin Falk, these guys are not only going to develop, they're going to excel and they're going to be special. Then you got Tyrion Davis-Price, who's very, very good catching out of the backfield, as well as he is just a bludgeoning instrument up through the middle. This guy's really good between the tackles. He's really good after contact. He's really good. He doesn't just run for his life. He runs to take yours. That guy, he is unbelievable. He is as evasive as he is just bludgeoning. Jerome Bettis on one side and then a little bit of a Lattimore on the other, Marcus Lattimore on the other. He's just got these, really, really good moves. I really love Tyrion Davis-Price. He showed a lot last year, as we saw against Florida. His game-sealing touchdown in that game, that was the game winner to allow us to pull ahead, was Tyrion Davis-Price coming off the bench and atoning for his flag against Auburn. But Chris Curry has been listed as the starter for so many, including Coach Orgeron. It's all based on his performance against Oklahoma and the way he consistently practiced and grind when he was getting next to no playing time. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in there almost every snap. And then if he wasn't, you had Tyrion Davis-Price and John Emery getting loads of playing time in spots, especially TDP. So Chris Curry, he was kind of the odd man out. He was almost forgotten by the time it came to the Oklahoma game, and an Edwards-Helaire replacement was actually on the docket. We needed someone to come in and fill at least just the minutes for him, buy him time, especially if that game got close, which we know.
I think there were about 3 plays run in that game, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly going to go exactly the way I thought it was.
Even Edwards-Helaire with the torn hamstring just trained a few people. I mean, it was outrageous. But those guys showed up big time, not only in that game, but also against Clemson in spots, especially TDP. He had a few plays in that game that were really good. Against Oklahoma, all of them just were bullies against Oklahoma. And I really admire that because they took after what Edwards-Helaire was showing them with a torn hamstring. He was just trucking Justin Sproles or something like that, some name for we should just call him the nameless and the faceless after what happened to him from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because after that, those guys came off the bench and were doing the same stuff. John Emery Jr. had a touchdown in that game. I'm not sure if TDP did, but I know Emery did, and TDP trucked a few people as well. They were following in suit. And then Chris Curry, what he did in that Oklahoma game, 90 rushing yards, 16 carries, I think were his numbers. I'm not sure about the carries, but I know about the yards.
You nailed it. And
Chris Curry, he was a feast of every opposition's famine, a beast of every opposition's burden. He was unbelievable. And Chris Curry, he deserved every plaudit he has. And you know what? For that performance, he probably deserves the first bite at the starting position. He once said he is the #1 running back in America. He has the confidence. He has the intensity. He has the abilities. Chris Curry, he might be the leader of the pack. There were a lot of plays where he was motioned out wide, just like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's not just I've heard a lot of people say he's a power back. He does have the power moves. He does have the agility, though, and he also has the pass-catching ability when you can motion him out wide. He is a threat. He is a threat in the check-down game. He is a threat after contact. Kevin Falk, he is going to be an unbelievable dude for these guys. He's already been hanging with them for a year as the director of player development. He probably gave Clyde Edwards-Helaire the mentality to be a raging just destroyer out there against all those guys. We'll probably know soon enough. I hope to get Kevin Falk on an interview one day, and I'm going to ask him, did you give Clyde that type of vibe? I mean, Clyde's always had that vibe where he's going to just come after you and he's going to try and do Barry Sanders type plays, and he showed some of those moves in 2018 in spots. But 2019, he just accelerated to a whole other dimension. I expect the running backs to be a position where we can rely on them 100%. Miles Brennan is going to be they're going to make him look good at times. They're going to completely save his ass at times, on third down especially, with some of their moves and in plays after contact. These receivers are going to be blanketed. You're going to see tons of 4 to 5 safety looks, tons of nickel and dime packages. You're going to see a lot of dump downs to the running backs, and they're going to have to make moves. They're going to have to make plays after contact. They're going to have to drill guys and get those first downs. And I think they're going to be a huge strength on this team.
By the way, Justin Broyles is the Oklahoma defender who got in the way of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And we'll never forget that meeting.
It's very apt because he got fried and broiled in that game.
And we've got an offensive line to talk about. So none of this happens with these fancy playmakers on the outside if you don't have the offensive line. And it's always a talented offensive line at LSU, just like every other positional unit. But the improvement that they made and the progress that they made in 2019 over the performance from the previous couple of years was pretty substantial. And it was a very veteran offensive line as well. A lot of experience.
There were some young dudes as well. I mean, I get what you're saying because they had some experience for a few years, but what James Craig did to them, it felt new. It felt like these guys were all suddenly new players. Damian Lewis did come from JUCO for 2019 out of nowhere and had a great year, and now he's in the NFL at Seattle Seahawks. A lot of those guys got drafted. James Craig, what he's done, Super Bowl winning dude. He was at USC for a long time. This guy, he has the pedigree. He has the promise. And you see a lot of guys gravitating towards him from across the nation. This guy isn't just the #1 premier offensive line coach in America. He will be a future head coach at some school very soon. And I hope we don't lose him, but he's just too good. James Craig is absolutely unreal. And the way he develops players is very special. This offensive line, there's a lot of developing to do. Austin Deculus, he is the leader, right tackle. And what you want to hear about a leader for the offensive line, we just heard from Tommy Moffitt, the strength and conditioning coach. He said Deculus could pass the conditioning test right now if ran, and he's in better shape than he was the previous 3 years. This is a guy who's committed to being the leader of that offensive line room. Then you got transferred Liam Shanahan, who's an older guy. He can play at guard. He can play at tackle. It was 11 starts at tackle, 9 starts at guard or something like that in those high numbers he at Harvard. This guy knows the X's and O's. He is a perfect classroom guy for us to get for some of these younger guys to kind of grow and develop and to understand the kind of complex multi-protection schemes we use. There's a lot of stock blocking, a lot of just weird movements along our line. Then you got at left tackle, I think it's going to be Dari Rosenthal. This guy is unbelievable. He's going to be in the NFL one day. Dari Rosenthal is huge, something like 6'7", almost 300 pounds, or over 300 pounds. Seeing him in a lot of snaps last year, he was incredible, especially against Utah State, against Auburn, against Mississippi State. He had a lot of good plays. At left guard, Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram was fantastic. He can play at right guard as well as he did against Oklahoma. He played almost every snap in that game after Damian Lewis went down, and he was, obviously it's one of the best offensive performance in college football history. And Ingram was a big part of that. He gave Joe Burrow tons of time against Texas, especially on that 3rd and 17 play. I blamed Ed Ingram for that play, for 3rd and 17, for all those guys getting in Joe Burrow's face on that 3rd and 17 unbelievable moment. But it was actually Ed Ingram keeping the play alive with his fight when I actually really watched that film. Ed Ingram, he is brilliant. Then at center, you've got some questions. There's a few options you have. Number one option is Chasen Hines. He's never had a snap in a game at center. He's had a few snaps in games at guard. He has never played at center, although he did study under Lloyd Cushenberry last year and was kind of, in a way, groomed to be the center for 2020. He is having struggles with the shotgun snap. That's just not acceptable with our offense. Our offense is almost exclusively shotgun, especially how Miles wants to run it, especially how Burrow ran it, especially how we're going to run it for the rest of time. It's in the shotgun. You need that pre-snap vision. You need that pre-snap space, that distance. And if he can't get the snap, you've got Charles Turner, who's right there. You've got Joseph Evans. You've got really good options. Charles Turner, he's a guy we really love here at LSU. He's a big-time fan favorite. Charles Turner could be the starting center on week 1. I wouldn't be surprised. It's all about who can get that snap down. If he can't get the snap down, which is the most key element, it doesn't matter how good Chasen Hines is in the trenches. He has proven he is unbelievable in the trenches, what he can do and the time he can buy you. But if he can't get that snap down, he will not be center. Charles Turner will be. Liam Shanahan could also fill in as the center as well. He's had time playing center. At right guard, I really suspect you're going to see Anthony Bradford starting. Cardell Thomas, he's going to need just a little bit of time to kind of come back from his injury, a little bit of time to get into those complex movements and those complex motions, some of those battles in the trenches. But I hope not, because he's a 5-star talent. He's an absolute superior being on the offensive line. Cardell Thomas versus Anthony Bradford, that's a really, really interesting battle. Marlon Martinez, St. Thomas Aquinas teammate with Marcus Dumerville, will also be in competition for that right guard spot. Marcus Dumerville and Austin Deculus will be, in that right tackle spot, but Marcus Dumerville could also back up Dari Rosenthal at left tackle along with Cam Wire. And so you've got options, you've got mobility, you've got versatility, but we need to see the steak. We need to see the moments. We need to see the meat to these potatoes. We need to see that they can make those blocks, they can make those movements, that they have the speed to contend with some of these SEC defenses, that they have the girth, the strength, and the integrity to just stay in there and buy Miles Brennan time. Will they believe in Miles Brennan 100%? Will they protect Miles Brennan 100%? Will they be able to fight off some of these awesome defenses in the college football realm? I'm not sure. As a collective, we have to see from this offensive line. James Craig I'll make a prediction, though. James Craig will develop these guys. He will get high-quality plays and protection from this offensive line, and this offensive line will at least be a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 producing offensive line that will get Miles Brennan over the line.
We have delivered roster breakdowns for over 20 teams here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, but we got the one that we definitely needed to post. We got to the national champions on offense. So stay tuned in the next week or so. We'll get to the defense. Please check out our video that we just posted just a few days ago with Lon concerning recruiting, targets, commits, transfer portal news, and COVID as well. Lon, we appreciate the breakdown as always, the knowledge, the energy, the passion. It's great.
Mark, you are a blessing. You are a good man. Thank you. Be safe. I hope all is well to all college football fans everywhere, even Alabama fans. We still love you, even though we consider you ill. You need to recover. We still love you. We still love you, Bama fans. Everybody, be safe. Go Tigers.
We certainly know that the peace and the healing is needed when an LSU person can extend the hand of peace.
Absolutely.
Very nice. Thanks so much, Lon.
Nothing but love, Mark. Go Tigers.